Have you ever wondered if today's political events are being shaped by prophecies in the Bible? What if the ongoing conflict between Iran and Israel is not just a national conflict, but a sign of a religious and geopolitical war foretold in the Bible 2,500 years ago? Let's dive in and explore. Could the war between Iran and Israel be preparing us for the greatest event in human history? How could the Bible have predicted these events with such precision? The battle between Israel and Iran is more than just a contemporary conflict. It's a conflict foretold in ancient scriptures. In the book of Ezekiel, we find prophecies that seem to be coming to life today. As we look at the tensions building up between Iran and Israel, could we be witnessing the unfolding of the most significant moment in history? We'll analyze the prophecies from Ezekiel and explore whether these events are truly the beginning of a global conflict or simply a part of God's larger plan. Join me as we uncover the profound meaning behind the events unfolding today. In this video, you will gain insight into the historical context of Persia, explore the significant role Iran, ancient Persia, has played in the Bible, and understand how the geopolitical movements of the present could be setting the stage for a divine prophecy to come true. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think these ancient prophecies are unfolding right before our eyes? Subscribe and hit the like button if you're ready to dive deep into this fascinating mystery. Iran, once the mighty empire of Persia, has always held a place of significance in both history and prophecy. To understand its current role in the Middle East, we must first recognize the deep roots Persia has in the Bible. In fact, Persia's influence stretches far beyond the political realm. It intertwines with divine prophecy, playing a part in the unfolding of God's great plan for the world. In the Bible, Persia is not just a geographical region. It is a symbol of God's sovereignty over nations. One of the most striking moments in biblical history is the rise of Cyrus the Great, the king of Persia, who, according to prophecy, was chosen by God to free the Jewish people from their Babylonian captivity. In Isaiah 45:1, God calls Cyrus his anointed, a title usually reserved for the kings of Israel. Through Cyrus's actions, God fulfilled his promise to bring his people back to Jerusalem, as foretold by the prophets. This moment, though centuries old, sets the stage for understanding Iran's role in God's plan today. Iran's historical significance doesn't stop with Cyrus. The Medo-Persian Empire, which spanned much of the ancient world, is deeply intertwined with Israel's journey. But what does this mean for us today? Is there something in these ancient prophecies that speaks to the world we live in now? The answer may lie in how God uses nations, even those with complicated political histories, to fulfill his greater purposes. Fast forward to modern times, and we see Iran as a nation that, despite its complicated relationship with the West, still plays a critical role in the geopolitical landscape. After the Islamic Revolution in 1979, Iran transformed from a Western allied monarchy to a radical theocratic state. This drastic shift was not just a political change, but a spiritual one, as Iran's leaders sought to unite the Muslim world under a vision that opposed the very foundation of Israel's existence. From a biblical perspective, this shift is not just about politics. It is part of a larger spiritual battle foretold in the scriptures. The Bible offers us a prophetic window into the future, a future where nations like Iran, aligned with Russia and Turkey, will play a central role in the events leading up to the ultimate confrontation between good and evil. Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39 describe a coalition of nations that will come against Israel in the latter days, with Persia, modern-day Iran, at the helm. The key question is not whether these events will unfold, prophecy has already spoken, but when and how we will witness them come to fruition. In this light, Iran's post-1979 transformation can be seen as a step in the fulfillment of Ezekiel's vision. Iran's leadership, driven by a theological fervor to see the end of Israel, is not merely a matter of national interest. It is a spiritual crusade, deeply rooted in the Islamic eschatological view of the coming of the Mahdi. This belief system, tied to the Shia tradition, plays a significant role in shaping Iran's foreign policy today. The radical desire to eliminate Israel is not just a political stance. It is a deeply held religious conviction, one that sees the destruction of Israel as a necessary step in the coming of the Mahdi. But why is this so significant? Why should we care about these ancient prophecies and the role Iran plays in them? Because they remind us of the truth that God is sovereign over history. Just as he used Persia to fulfill his plan thousands of years ago, he is using the nations of the world today to bring about his purposes. Nothing is happening by chance. The conflict between Iran and Israel, though terrifying and heartbreaking, is not outside of God's control. It is, in fact, part of the divine narrative that will ultimately lead to the return of Christ and the establishment of his eternal kingdom. As we look at the world today, it's easy to get caught up in the headlines, in the daily barrage of news that tells us the world is spiraling out of control. But the Bible gives us a different perspective. It tells us that everything happening now has been foreseen. God is not absent in the midst of our struggles. He is actively involved in the unfolding of history. And just as he foretold the rise of Persia to bring his people back to Jerusalem, he has foretold the role of Iran in the final days. This brings us to an important lesson. We must not lose heart in the face of geopolitical turmoil. Though we may not understand everything that is happening, we can take comfort in the fact that God is working out his purposes through all of it. The ancient words of the Bible are not just relics of the past. They are living, breathing promises that guide us through the uncertainties of today. As we consider the ongoing struggle between Iran and Israel, we must remember that this is not just a political conflict. It is a spiritual battle, one that is rooted in ancient prophecies. But there is hope. God has promised that no matter how dark the days may seem, he will ultimately triumph. The battle belongs to the Lord, and in the end his victory will be complete. This is the hope that we hold on to, the hope that transcends all earthly conflict. Let us not be afraid of the future, for we know that God is in control. And as we move forward, let us look to the Bible for guidance, finding in its pages the wisdom and strength we need to navigate the challenges of our own day. Let us remember that the same God who used Persia to fulfill his promises to Israel is the same God who is at work in our world today, bringing about his will, no matter how impossible it may seem. So, as we reflect on Iran's role in biblical prophecy, we are reminded that God's plan is unfolding before our eyes. The nations of the world are playing their parts in this divine drama, and though we may not always understand why things are happening the way they are, we can trust that God is working through it all. We can take solace in the knowledge that, no matter what happens, his will shall prevail, and his glory will be revealed to all. The story of Persia is not just one of the past. It is a story that continues today. As we witness the rise of Iran in the world stage, we are called to reflect on the truth of God's word, to trust in his promises, and to remember that he is sovereign over all things. Let this be a reminder that no matter how uncertain the world may seem, we serve a God who knows the end from the beginning and who is working all things together for his glory. As we transition to the next phase of our exploration, we will see how these ancient prophecies are beginning to manifest in the world around us. But first, let us take a moment to reflect on the significance of these words and how they speak to us in our present day. Iran, a nation with ancient roots, holds a place in both history and prophecy that cannot be ignored. But what is it about Iran, or Persia, as it was once known, that makes it so central to the Bible's predictions about the future? Why is it not just a political actor in the modern Middle East, but a significant figure in God's unfolding plan for the world? The Bible speaks of Persia in a way that goes beyond its historical importance. In the Old Testament, Persia was used by God to fulfill his purposes, particularly in the story of King Cyrus. The prophet Isaiah spoke of Cyrus 150 years before his birth, calling him his anointed, a title typically reserved for Israel's kings. God used Cyrus to free the Jewish people from Babylonian captivity and help them return to their homeland. It was through this divine intervention that Israel was given the chance to rebuild Jerusalem and re-establish their identity as God's chosen people. This historical event is far more than a chapter in a history book. It is a testimony to the fact that God can use anyone, even a foreign king like Cyrus, to accomplish his will. Now consider the situation in the Middle East today. Iran, as the modern incarnation of Persia, stands in direct opposition to Israel. But why does this matter? Why is the role of Iran so significant in the grand tapestry of biblical prophecy? The answer lies in the prophetic words of Ezekiel. In chapters 38 and 39, we read about a future invasion of Israel by a coalition of nations, with Persia leading the charge. This prophecy, written thousands of years ago, has many modern scholars and theologians looking at Iran's growing influence and power in the region with renewed interest. Could Iran's leadership and its aggressive stance against Israel be fulfilling the words of Ezekiel? The Bible foretells that Persia will be part of the final conflict, one that will bring the nations of the world to the brink of a global war. This is no small matter. It speaks to the very heart of God's plan for the world. But why is Iran specifically involved in such an epic prophecy? It's not just about political strategy or military power. Iran's involvement in this prophetic story is driven by a deep religious conviction. Iran, as the heart of Shia Islam, has a unique belief system that shapes its worldview. Central to this is the belief in the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, who they believe will return to bring justice and peace to the world. For many in Iran's leadership, this means that the destruction of Israel is not just a political goal, it is a religious imperative. In their eyes, the downfall of Israel is part of the eschatological framework that will bring the Mahdi's return. This theological aspect of Iran's foreign policy is crucial to understanding the intensity of its conflict with Israel. It's not just about territory, it's about fulfilling what they believe to be divine prophecy. This presents a powerful lesson for us today. We live in a world where geopolitical conflicts often seem detached from spiritual concerns. We watch as nations rise and fall, seemingly driven by human ambitions. But the Bible reminds us that there is a higher purpose at work. In the case of Iran, what might seem like political rivalry or national pride is, in fact, part of a much larger spiritual battle. And just as Persia was used by God to accomplish his will in the past, so too might Iran play a pivotal role in his future plans. But the story doesn't end there. Iran's deep involvement in regional conflicts, particularly in Syria and Iraq, further strengthens the belief that it is positioning itself for the prophecy of Ezekiel 38 to 39 to unfold. Iran has formed strong alliances with nations like Russia and Turkey, both of which also play significant roles in the final battle against Israel. The Bible speaks of these nations joining forces in the last days to attack Israel, and what we are witnessing now, this growing alliance, could very well be the formation of that coalition. For many, this can be a source of anxiety. The idea that the world is hurtling toward an inevitable conflict can be unsettling. But the Bible offers us a profound sense of hope and peace in the midst of uncertainty. The prophecies in Ezekiel and throughout Scripture remind us that God is not distant. He is actively involved in the world. The rise of Iran, the alliances being formed, and the mounting tensions in the Middle East are all part of his plan. While these events may seem troubling, they are also a sign of God's ultimate control over history. Nothing happens outside of his will. The story of Persia and Israel is not just a lesson for ancient times. It is a story that speaks directly to us today. we are reminded that God is in charge of the nations, and his plan is moving forward, regardless of what we see on the surface. It can be easy to become consumed with fear or worry, but we must remember that the Bible offers us a higher perspective. Even as Iran continues to challenge Israel, even as nations form alliances and tensions rise, we can take comfort in the fact that God is in control. He is guiding the course of history toward his intended end. In the midst of this unfolding drama, we also see the theme of divine justice. While it may seem like evil is prevailing in the world, the Bible assures us that God's justice will ultimately triumph. The book of Ezekiel doesn't just predict the rise of nations, it also predicts their fall. Just as Persia was used by God in the past to fulfill his purposes, so too will the powers of this world be held accountable. Iran's actions today, as with any nation, are part of a larger spiritual narrative, one where God's justice will eventually prevail over all. This is not a cause for fear, but for hope. It is a reminder that God is not absent from our world. He is actively involved in bringing about his righteous judgment. As we move toward the next chapter in this story, we must remember that the events unfolding in the Middle East are not just about political maneuvering. They are part of a larger divine narrative, one that has been foretold in the Bible for thousands of years. Iran's role in this story is not just a footnote in history, it is central to understanding God's plan for the future. And as we witness these events, we are reminded that God is in control. Even in the midst of turmoil and uncertainty, we can trust that his will is being done. As we continue to watch the rise of nations and the unfolding of prophetic events, let us do so with faith, knowing that God's ultimate victory is assured. The Bible speaks with clarity and authority when it describes the future battle that will unfold between Israel and the nations of the world. In Ezekiel 38 and 39, we are introduced to a prophecy that is as sobering as it is awe-inspiring. It depicts a time when the nations of the earth will rise up in opposition to Israel, led by a coalition that includes Persia, modern-day Iran. This invasion, foreseen in ancient texts, is not just a political or military conflict. It is a spiritual battle with cosmic significance. It marks the beginning of the end, the culmination of God's divine plan for the redemption of the world. As we look at the world today, the geopolitical movements in the Middle East mirror this ancient prophecy. Iran, with its growing power and its direct confrontation with Israel, stands at the forefront of this foretold conflict. And though the world may see it as a clash of nations, the Bible reveals a deeper truth. This is a spiritual war that will culminate in God's intervention. The Bible's portrayal of the Gog and Magog conflict serves as a reminder that human history is not merely a series of random events, but a divine narrative unfolding with purpose and precision. In Ezekiel, we learn that Iran, Persia, will align itself with other nations, including Russia and Turkey, to launch an attack on Israel. These alliances, which seem to be forming right before our eyes, suggest that we are closer than ever to the fulfillment of this prophecy. We are witnessing the stage being set for the final confrontation. But what does this mean for us today? How should we respond to this knowledge? For many, the idea of a global conflict can be terrifying. We may feel overwhelmed by the events unfolding in the Middle East and wonder what role we, as individuals, play in this divine drama. The answer lies in understanding that while the Bible reveals the ultimate outcome, it also speaks to us of God's faithfulness and sovereignty. Even in the midst of great turmoil, God is at work. His purposes are being fulfilled, and nothing can thwart his will. The prophecy of Ezekiel 38 to 39 is not just about the rise of nations against Israel, it is about the victory of God. When these nations come against Israel, they will not prevail. In fact, the Bible tells us that God himself will intervene on behalf of his people. The armies of Gog, led by Persia, will be defeated by the power of God. Ezekiel describes a cataclysmic event, a great earthquake, a hailstorm, and fire from heaven. God will use nature itself to defeat his enemies and bring about his victory. This is not a battle of human strength, it is a battle of divine sovereignty. It is a reminder that God is the ultimate ruler of the universe, and his power is unmatched. This prophecy speaks to the heart of every believer. It assures us that no matter how dark the times may seem, God is in control. Even when the world seems to be spiraling into chaos, we can trust that God is actively involved in the world. His plan is moving forward, and nothing can stand in his way. As we face challenges in our own lives, whether personal struggles or global conflicts, we are reminded that we serve a God who is in control of all things. He is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. As we witness the rise of nations and the growing tensions in the Middle East, it is easy to become consumed with fear and anxiety. But the Bible calls us to a different perspective. It calls us to place our trust in God, knowing that He is sovereign over all. The conflict between Iran and Israel is not something that has caught God by surprise. It is part of His plan, and He is working through it to bring about His ultimate purposes. We can take comfort in knowing that God is not passive. He is actively working in the world, guiding the course of history toward His predetermined end. In the end, the battle between Israel and the nations will culminate in God's glorious victory. The world will see that He is the true King, and His glory will fill the earth. As believers, we are called to trust in this promise, even when the world around us seems uncertain. The Bible assures us that God will intervene on behalf of His people, just as He has done throughout history. From the parting of the Red Sea to the victory of the Israelites over their enemies, God has shown time and time again that He is faithful to His promises. But there is also a warning in this prophecy, a call for repentance and humility. As nations rise against Israel, the Bible reminds us that God will not be mocked. Those who oppose His people will face His judgment. This is a sobering reality, but it is also an invitation to turn to God in faith. Just as God used Persia to bring about His plan for Israel in the past, He will use the nations of the world to fulfill His will in the future. But we are called to trust in Him, to seek His guidance, and to align ourselves with His purposes. As we move into the final chapter of this unfolding prophecy, we are reminded of the ultimate victory of God. The final battle will not be won by the strength of armies or the might of nations. It will be won by the power of God. And in the end, Israel will stand victorious as a testimony to the faithfulness of God. This victory will not only be a victory for Israel, but for all of humanity. It will be a victory that brings about the establishment of God's eternal kingdom, a kingdom of peace, justice, and righteousness. In this light, the conflict between Iran and Israel is not just about political or military power. It is about God's plan for the world. It is about the ultimate victory of good over evil, the triumph of God's kingdom over the kingdoms of this world. As we reflect on this prophecy, we are reminded that our hope is not in the things of this world, but in the eternal promises of God. No matter what happens in the days ahead, we can take comfort in the knowledge that God is in control, and His victory is assured. As we approach the final stages of this prophecy, let us keep our eyes fixed on the ultimate goal, the establishment of God's kingdom. And as we watch the events unfold, let us remember that we are part of this great narrative. We are called to trust in God's sovereignty, to stand firm in our faith, and to look forward to the day when God will make all things new. That is the ultimate hope for every believer, the hope that no matter how dark the world may seem, God's light will shine brighter and His kingdom will reign forever. As we reflect on the ancient prophecies of the Bible and the events unfolding in the world around us, we are reminded of a profound truth. God's plan is unstoppable. From the rise of Persia to the alignment of nations to the coming conflict foretold in the book of Ezekiel, the scriptures speak with a clarity that transcends time. The world may be in turmoil, nations may rise against each other, but we are reminded that God remains in control. The unfolding drama is not without purpose, and every detail fits perfectly into his divine will. Looking at the world today, with the tension between Iran and Israel and the growing alliances in the Middle East, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or even fearful. But let us take a moment to step back and see these events not with earthly eyes, but through the lens of divine purpose. For in the midst of conflict, God is still working, still shaping history, and still bringing his promises to fruition. This is a time to be reminded that his victory is certain, that his kingdom is coming, and that his justice will prevail. The Bible assures us that no matter how dark the times may seem, God is always present. His promises are unshakable, and his plans for the future will unfold exactly as he has said. We may not understand every event or every turning point in history, but we can trust that he is using all things, including the rising tensions of today, to bring about his ultimate victory. As we think about the words of Ezekiel and the role of nations like Iran in God's plan, we are reminded of our own place in this story. We are living in a time where God's sovereignty is being made known on the world stage, where the nations are coming together for a final confrontation, and where his justice will be revealed in its fullness. This is not something to fear, but something to embrace with faith. The Bible does not leave us in uncertainty. It assures us of God's triumph and calls us to stand firm in our faith, knowing that he is with us every step of the way. This is a time of deep reflection. It is a time to take stock of the world around us, to acknowledge the forces that are at work, and to remember that our hope is not in the powers of this world, but in the eternal promises of God. As we look ahead to the fulfillment of these ancient prophecies, we are invited to take comfort in the knowledge that God is not passive. He is active, involved, and working all things for his glory. But this message is not just one of prophecy and future events. It is a call to action for us in the here and now. God's plan is not something that is far off in the future. It is something that is unfolding today. And we, as his people, are called to be a part of it. We are called to stand firm in our faith, to trust in his sovereignty, and to proclaim his glory no matter the circumstances. As we continue to navigate the challenges of life, let us hold fast to the truth that God is in control. He has spoken through his word, and his word is living and active. The events of today, from the rise of nations to the struggles between Israel and her enemies, are all part of his grand design. And though the world may appear chaotic, we can take comfort in the fact that God's plan is moving forward with certainty. We have a front row seat to the fulfillment of prophecy, and it is a reminder that his promises are true and his victory is coming. In moments like these, it is easy to feel small or insignificant in the face of such grand, world-altering events. But remember, we are not alone in this story. God is with us, guiding us and strengthening us for whatever may come. His promises are our anchor. His word is our light, and his presence is our peace. We are part of his family, and that makes us part of the unfolding of his glorious plan. Now, more than ever, it is important to support and encourage one another. If this video has touched your heart or brought clarity to your mind, if it has helped you see the events of the world through a lens of faith, I invite you to share in this journey with me. Every comment, every like, every subscription is more than just a number. It is a powerful statement that we are together in this mission. Your support fuels this work, and together we can continue to share the hope and truth of God's word with the world. If you feel that this message has brought something to your soul, if it has helped you find light in the darkness of these times, I invite you to lend your energy to keep this work going. Your support, no matter how small, is invaluable to me. It allows us to continue reaching others, to share the truth of God's sovereignty, and to encourage those who may feel lost or uncertain. Together, we are part of a greater movement, a movement of faith, hope, and love that will ultimately overcome every challenge the world may face. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of this journey. Your encouragement and support mean the world, and I'm grateful to walk this path with you. As we look forward to the fulfillment of God's promises, let us do so with hearts full of faith, knowing that He is with us every step of the way. Together we are part of His eternal plan, and together we will see His kingdom come.